Childhood and Growing Up. This is for B.Ed first year, exclusively for Pondicherry University, explained by Dr. Shubha, Vasavi College of Education, Pondicherry. Unit 8, Marginalization of Social Difference. Under this unit, we will be reading about underprivileged sector of society, that is girl child, children in Dalit household and differently abled, present status of underprivileged in India, delinquency child, measures to eradicate marginalization, community involvement, implementation of laws, internalizing values. Peter Leonard defines marginality as being outside the mainstream of productive activity or social reproductive activity. That is, they are kept outside the mainstream of the society. Marginalized children is a group of children who are confined to the lower or peripheral edge of the society. That is, society is at its center and they are only at the peripheral, at the circumference. Such a group is denied involvement in the mainstream and they cannot become leader. Mainstream economic, political, cultural and social activities. They cannot take part in games and sports and they cannot compete with the other mainstream children. Marginalization is a process whereby something or someone is pushed to the edge of a group and accorded lesser importance, means they are deprived, they are neglected, they are shunned out to the core. This is a social phenomena by which a minority or subgroup is excluded and their needs or desires are ignored. In general, the term marginalization describes the overt actions. The overt means seen actions, you can see, or tendencies of human societies where people who they perceive to undesirable or without useful functions are excluded. Excluded, marginalized. So, marginalized means what? Deprived of something and you feel they are waste. I mean, you don't want them with you. These people who are marginalized form a group or community for their protection and integration are known as marginalized groups. So, who are all deprived, they form a group. Now, what are the characteristics of marginalized groups? They suffer from discrimination and subordination. They have physical and cultural traits that set them apart. They have their own culture, which are disapproved of by a dominant group, which the other group will not approve. They share a sense of collective identity and common burdens. They have shared social rules about who belongs and who does not. They have a tendency to marry within group. They don't want to mingle with the other group because the other group, the elite group, has neglected these groups. Underlying causes of marginalization and its manifestation. Now this picture will give you an idea. The most marginalized often do not even meet basic needs. They won't have, let alone build assets. They are discriminated against resources. Resources are controlled by those who do not allow them any access. They are unable to build up or use assets, and because they have hardly any assets, they stay vulnerable. See, the basic needs is in the middle. Most marginalized groups. Shocks, threats. They can't meet basic needs. Exclusion. Despised and hated by others for being drug users, sex workers, subjected to violence with access to resources hindered. Governance acts against most marginalized from extortion and beatings to weak policies. Yes. So I just want you to see this picture. Just for your understanding, what's the opposite of marginalized? Elevated, praised, promoted, celebrated, valued, acclaimed, adulated, commended, complimented, and focused. Underprivileged sector of society, deprived children. Deprivation is the reduction or prevention of culturally normal interaction between an individual and the rest of the society. That is, the rest of the society and an individual, between them there is a prevention. That is, the individual is not allowed to mingle with the rest of the society. The individual's right to mingle or talk, to commune with the rest of the society is prevented or reduced. That is deprivation, depriving of something. Social deprivation may be correlated, that is connected with or contribute to social exclusion, which is when a member in a particular society is not accepted by other members of the society. The excluded member is denied access to the resources that allow for healthy social, economic, and political interaction. Now, these days we don't have much of this, but earlier, yes, we used to have, like in a village, if there are two wells, then one well is for elite class family. The other well is for socially economic status, those people. So they cannot, if they are low in social economic status, they cannot come and take water from this well. So excluded member, so they denied access to water and other resources. They cannot go through their roads, they cannot pass through their houses. So there were a lot of problems were there earlier, but these days I don't think we have much of these problems. So the excluded member, the member who is denied access to the resources, and the resources will allow for healthy economic and political interaction, that will not be given to this deprived family. Pearson has identified 5 key factors that set social exclusion in motion. Number 1, poverty. Poor people, they will be deprived of so many other factors. Lack of access to jobs, denial of social supports or peer networks, exclusion from services. That is, you cannot do this service, you cannot become a policeman, you cannot do puja in the temple, like that. Negative attitude of the local neighborhood. So these are the key factors which set social exclusion in motion. It is also associated with abusive caretaking, developmental delay, mental illness, and subsequent suicide. Naturally, so people who are deprived will mentally, they will be ill mentally, they will be mentally sick, and it may end up in suicide also. Dalit. The word Dalit is derived from the Sanskrit Dalita and means divided, split, broken, or scattered, derived from the meaning of the verbal root to divide, Dalit. The caste system is a strict hierarchical social system based on underlying notions of purity and pollution. The marginalization. What is marginalization? Exclusion, depriving of something. Of Dalits influences all spheres of their lives, violating basic human rights. So their civil rights, political rights, that is voting and other things, social, economic and cultural rights. So they are not allowed to go to temple, they are not allowed to do some sorts of puja, likewise. A major proportion of the lower castes and Dalits are still dependent on others for their livelihood, even in India. Dalits, they have meager purchasing power, that is very less purchasing power, and have poor housing conditions, as well as have low access to resources and entitlements. Structural discrimination against these groups takes place in the form of physical, psychological, emotional and cultural abuse, which we saw in the previous unit. Physical segregation of their settlements is common in the villages. So physically segregated means they will live in a group, as a group, and that group will not mingle with the other group, forcing them to live in the most unhygienic and inhabitable conditions. There are high rates of malnutrition reported among the marginalized groups, resulting in mortality, morbidity, and anemia. Measures to promote marginalized children. Elimination of school fees that reflect obstacles for the poorest children. Means the parent cannot pay the fees, that's why they are not sending them to school. Implementation of an enriched, adaptable curriculum for them. Whatever is needed for them, that should be included in the curriculum. Developing strategies to support lower performing students. Providing adequate and healthy school infrastructure and guaranteeing child rights and protection. Now these days the government has come up with Navodaya schools. So they give boarding and lodging free for some children, those who are marginalized children. Improving teacher quality and teacher motivation. This is really a must, because a teacher should like these children, then only she can teach. So she should not have an attitude towards these children, a very good attitude. She should like and love to serve these children. She has to be motivated. Then only the teacher quality and teacher motivation plays a very important key role in this. Establishing community schools. Providing bilingual education, because just at the start, if you start with English, they won't understand. So bilingual in their mother tongue also. Though there has been some improvement in certain spheres these days, the government has taken a lot of effort. Despite some positive changes, the standard of living for the marginalized communities has not improved. That's very sad. A delinquent child is a child of a certain age who has violated a criminal law or engaged in a disobedient, indecent, or immoral conduct. A delinquent child is usually in need of rehabilitation. Teens becoming juvenile delinquents due to lack of finances. When they experience poor economic conditions, they start engaging in the wrong activities. They may start selling drugs or steal things to improve their economic conditions. Now what is this? A child or an adolescent who has done some crime. So what is this crime? A crime can be stealing from somebody, beating somebody, or showing knife and stealing. So these are the acts. And engaging in a disobedient, indecent, immoral conduct, sexual abuse of a girl child of a nearby neighborhood. So these are delinquent acts. So whenever a child is engaged and he is caught, or a teen is engaged and he is caught, so they need rehabilitation. So they will not be sent to jail, they will be sent to juvenile home, boys home likewise. So there is a rehabilitation center. So they will be taught regular education also, and also moral values will also be taught to them, because ultimately the government wants them to become good individual. Some of the reasons that are most common for a minor to turn to juvenile delinquency. School problems. In school maybe the teacher is not very passionate, and the teacher is very biased and prejudiced towards these children, making sarcastic marks. So the child gets agitated and there will be problems. Economic problems. If the parent is not having enough money, not giving him pocket money, so he doesn't have finance, so he wants to steal from somebody. Or substance abuse from home life. Personal substance abuse, that is, I don't have but he has, so I want to have this somehow, so he wants to steal. Physical abuse at home. mother or father or any governors beating him. Now he wants to give back to them. So instead of giving back to that person, he gives to some other person. He hits other person. Lack of adult interaction. That is, nobody is talking to him with passion. And he wants to, behave like an adult. That is, I am responsible, so I can take my charge. Why should I talk to this person? Likewise, peer pressure, neighborhood influence. So all this will definitely inculcate, a habit of stealing and doing other criminal activities. Schools across the country are welcoming and serving students from diverse backgrounds. Each student brings their unique culture and individual backgrounds. Students from diverse groups that have experienced marginalization may be especially vulnerable to stressors. Currently, many students who themselves are or live in families with immigrants, undocumented immigrants, unaccompanied minors, refugees, persons of color are reporting feeling targeted and unsafe. That is, if they are immigrant, if they come from a different place like Sri Lanka, they had LTTA problems. So many Sri Lankans, they came to India, they went to Canada also. So when they are immigrants and undocumented immigrants, people from Burma and all, they are staying here in India. Now these days, you know that we have lots of problems with immigrant. Unaccompanied minors, that is, father is not there, mother is not there, so he is on his own. Refugees, persons of color, black color, but of course in the US we say black color, African people, American people, but here persons of color, everybody, they are feeling targeted. That is, the government is not doing anything. If at all there is any crime, then immediately these people are taken to task by the police and they are unsafe. That's what they feel. Extreme stress, adversity and trauma can impede concentration, cognitive functioning, memory and social relationships. Stress can contribute to both internalized symptoms such as anxiety, depression, grief, anger, isolation, and externalized behaviors, startle responses, reactivity, aggression, and conduct problems. So what is this? If any child is having a stress or trauma or any problem in the family, this will definitely hamper his concentration in the class. And his cognitive functioning will also be hampered, memory, and he cannot be social with other peers. He will have internalized internal problems like depression, fear, anger, external problems also. Startle responses means he will not be coherent in his speech. And reactivity, aggression, he will be very, very aggressive. Aggression will be there. And conduct problems also, poor conduct. Schools might see absences, distracted behavior, withdrawal, irritability, and other changes in the students who may feel that their family members or their friends have been targeted in conversation and events around them. So if at all in the school the teacher feels that any child is absent for a long time or having any distracted behavior or withdrawn, irritable, so they have to find out whether they have any problem with are they feeling safe or they are targeted. Likewise, while there are no magic solutions for preventing delinquency, understanding and building up protective factors. So we need to understand why the child has done like this. And we have to build a protective factor. We need to protect the child. It's a good place to start. Protective factors are traits or experiences that help counteract risk factors. Youth resilience, social connectedness, concrete support, cognitive and social emotional competence. That is, we need to be very, very connected to these children. Like emotionally we need to They have to feel, yes, we are emotionally secured in this place. That emotional security and cognitive security should be given to them. We should not show our bias and prejudice to them. Issues of children living in urban slum. Children were defined more by their behavior than by their age. Besides poverty or health problems, the top rated harms to children being out of school, sexual abuse, drug abuse, and early pregnancy. Drug and alcohol abuse were rated as much more serious forms of harm to children in one slum than the other. Primary causes of children being out of school means they are not paying the fees and family wants the children to work. Parent don't care. Discrimination against non-biological children within the household. Negative peer influences and beatings by teachers. School also play a role. The Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission launched in December 2005, which embodies the principles of 74th Constitutional Amendment. Now what does this amendment says? In 1992, which proposes that urban local bodies should have a direct stake in urban poverty alleviation and slum improvement and upgrading with participation of citizens. Now this 74th Constitutional Amendment again gone through and launched in December 2005. Jawaharlal Nehru, that amendment says, a vision for improving quality of life in cities and promoting inclusive growth through substantial central financial assistance. That is, central government should financially assist these problems, and infrastructure and capacity development for improved governance and slum development through basic services to the urban poor like improved housing, water supply, sanitation, education, health and social security should be given to them. Now important fundamental rights. According to the Article 17 of our Constitution, untouchability is abolished. This means that no one can stop the Dalits from education, entering temples, using public facilities, etc. It also advocates practicing untouchability is wrong and is a punishable crime. Now we need to definitely remember Dr. Ambedkar. Also Article 15 of the Indian Constitution notes that no Indian citizen can be discriminated on the basis of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. This allows the Dalits to invoke or draw on fundamental right in situations if at all they feel their fundamental rights have been violated by somebody. Be it the local government or any person or even the central government, they can voice to the Supreme Court.